Mr. Vaughn, what we are dealing with here is a perfect engine, an eating machine. It's really a miracle of evolution. All this machine does is swim and eat and make little sharks, and that's all. Now, why don't you take a long, close look at the sign? Here's a look at the NECA Toys Jaws Retro Cloth Hooper Shark Cage. Dun 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 dun. Jaws is considered one of the greatest achievements in film, paving the way for what would become the summer blockbuster. NECA is excited to announce a new 8-inch cloth figure featuring the likeness of Richard Dreyfuss as Matt Hooper from the 1975 classic. Based on the shark cage scenes, this action figure of the young oceanographer stands 8 inches tall and is equipped with screen-accurate accessories such as flippers, spear, underwater light, knife, and oxygen tank, as well as swappable heads. Spending your spare time swimming with sharks? Better you than me. Before we get a closer look at the retro cloth Hooper in shark cage outfit, or his scuba outfit, I'd like to thank the folks over at NECA Toys that did come through and provide this sample of Hooper that we could have a look at in this video. Hooper is actually a second version of Hooper, as there's already one released in his regular outdoor fatigues. I'd like to get my hands on that one, because I think it would actually go better to be displayed along with Quint. Unfortunately, though, we're not getting ourselves a Sheriff Brody. I think the licensing fell through for that, and maybe down the road at some point they may find the way to release the Sheriff Brody, as I don't feel the trio would be complete without Brody included. That being said, grabbing the tape measure, clickety-click, barba trick, right to the very top of Hooper's head. Hooper! The figure isn't quite 8 inches. Although many online sites would try to convince you that. The figure in actual fact is only about 7 3/4 of an inch tall, and that works out to be a figure that's almost 20 centimeters in height. Speaking of Quint, let's slide over Scuba outfit Hooper. Farewell and adieu to you Spanish ladies. Farewell and adieu to you ladies of Spain. Here's what he looks like next to retro cloth Quint. What a fine-looking figure that was. When you actually put them back to back, I think actually even in the movie too, Hooper's slightly taller than Quint. Even though it is looking as if they are using the same molds, Hooper, as you can see, is just a tad bit taller. As for the accessories, though, that come included with Hooper, first, the figure comes included with a pair of knives. Did you just say a pair of knives? I did say a pair of knives. Identical pair, it seems, as well. They seem to be exactly the same mold, sharing not only the same mold, but also the same color. The blades themselves are nicely handled. Speaking of handles, the handles are also nicely handled, painted a much more shinier black. You can fit these into his hands, although the hands right now are in a permanent gripping position. He doesn't actually come included with any other hands than these. There is also technically a holster on the side of his leg, which I suppose you could take one of the blades and put them down there. You know, if you just don't have any other place you can store an extra knife. Does that ever be really a problem for people? Don't tell me if that's the case. I'm running out of places to put these knives of mine. Don't talk to me if that's the case. Anyways, he does come include those knives. Let's just put those to the side. And while still sticking with the same size of things, the figure also comes included with the shark dart. Hopefully you guys can actually see it. It kind of looks a little bit like a screwdriver without an actual end to it. The shark dart, like with the cases of the knives, can be held in either one of his hands. Promsies. In fact, actually, the plastic, I want to say, for the hands themselves are pretty soft, too. So it's quite easy to manipulate those fingers. Nudge them in the direction of getting them away from the palm, and you can easily put the shark dart into his hand. You can also put other things in his hand, like, for example, the next accessories we're going to be looking at. The figure comes included with a spear. The spear is slightly thicker when it gets to the handle, a little bit more narrow as we get a little bit to the end tip there. That tip is painted in silver. The gold below that, staying again all the obvious colors you're probably seeing for yourself, and then you've got a nice shiny black here for the majority of the spear, which I'm showcasing here like Vanna White. Again, like all the other cases, only the 2 cases we looked at before. Let's not exaggerate things. You can take the spear and, yeah, fit into his hand as well. One thing, actually, while I am going over all the things that's happening here with Hooper, the figure doesn't come included with a display stand. Now, NECA isn't one that usually include display stands with their figures. Occasionally in the past, they have delivered like flight stands, or kind of like the stands that have the clear acrylic next to them. That'd be a waist clip. You could buy those separately, but I think in a case like Hooper, it would have been nice if they could have included it, because of course the figure comes included with flippers. Segueing to flippers yet? Not segueing to flippers just yet. The figure also comes included with a flashlight. And while it doesn't look like it necessarily is on, I do like that they've actually put the end of it more of a translucent clear plastic. So you can still see the bulb that's inside of the actual torch. Torch is another term for a flashlight. You can see the little switch there on the side. It's mostly here, I'm guessing, molded in yellow plastic, not rather painted. And again, would you believe it? Fits into his hand. Wow, it's almost like they planned all of this. They did. NECA's pretty smart when it comes to that kind of stuff. Anyways, let's not be silly through the entire review here. Prying the fingers away, just moving them away. Actually, to be honest, if I can be honest for a second, this hand right here is better for really holding the torch, as it has a permanent kind of cupped grip to it. And then you can just simply, again, pry the fingers slightly away and just get the flashlight into his hand. And then this hand, oh, believe it, would actually be better suited for holding the spear. All the work I'm really doing into this right now, I'm only just going to remove those accessories anyways. But just to show you, you can actually put those accessories in both of his hands. Could there have been, yes, an opportunity that they could have included relaxed hands? I suppose. Yeah, I mean, sure, you could always include a relaxed hands with any figure, really. But I think in the case when it comes to scuba swimming Hooper, I would rather have both hands actually holding things and not giving him a relaxed hand. Hooper is always busy. He's always got something he needs to do. He better have hands to do that as well. While we're actually on the topic of him holding things, one thing that his feet can hold are a pair of flippers. The flippers seem to match one another. I don't think they're any bit different from one another. They're made of a slightly softer plastic, and these fit right over his feet, exactly the way that normal flippers would. Simply just slide these, almost as if you're putting on tiny little slippers. Imagine, if you will, a shrunk down person be putting on slippers, I'm sure the exact same way as I'm doing right now with these flippers. The flippers, though, are a little harder because you have to take the back end of it and fit them around his heel. When you succeed, you can go, yes, and nobody really will care. And then you can do the exact same thing on the other side. I won't do the victory pose after that. And those just fit over his feet. The thing about his feet, though, is that the joint is still there, but the feet are a little harder, I find, to bend. So when it comes to actually getting this guy to pose, when he actually has flippers on, Hooper is a little harder time to stand. You sort of have to kind of balance him a bit. Technically, he does have peg holes on the undersides of his feet, so if you do happen to have yourself a NECA display stand, just pop that on the bottom, and you're good to go. Taking those all off. Putting those to the side. We don't want to lose a pair of flippers. And really, one flipper is not going to be good enough. You can be swimming in circles. I think that's actually oars with boats, but still, you get the idea. Going to go ahead and take then the torch and put that to the side. Getting a closer look at Hooper with his defaulted head sculpt. This has him actually with the goggles on him. Now, apparently a scuba tip is you're supposed to spit inside your goggles. That will prevent them from fogging over. It's probably recommended, especially right now, to be spitting in your own goggles, and not necessarily the ones that you're going to be giving to somebody else. Don't do that, whatever you do. If in case you are curious, they can be technically removed. Don't remove the head, though, in the process. You can lift it up, and actually underneath that is Hooper's face. Why I'm not actually proceeding with the rest of removing these is because these are attached only by a very thin strand of rubbery plastic. And I feel that while trying to fit this over top of Richard Dreyfuss's quite outrageous hair, I'm sure he's only hoping now he could have hair like he did back then when he was Hooper. Richard Dreyfuss is a little on the more balder side now. But to actually take these goggles and fit them over top of his hair, just only so you can see his face, would be a hard feat to pull off. And I think, if anything, I would end up just ripping the strap on these. So I just want to show you what his eyes actually do look like underneath. I'm going to leave the goggles on for the time being. Boo, says the back of the crowd. Hey, you guys still there? Anyways. The figure also, while still sporting this head sculpt, allows him to use his breather. Simply just take the mouth breather there and plug that into his mouth. His mouth is in a permanent opening position, so it's quite easily actually take, is it the respirator? Somebody who's a scuba expert. It's funny enough that I'm talking all about scuba diving. And my brother-in-law, in fact, actually is a scuba diver. He'd probably be shaking his hands frivolously right now, just thinking to himself, why? Well, he's not even knowing what he's talking about when it comes to scuba outfits. But anyways, he does have the breather there. You can plug that easily into his mouth, and that actually runs via hose from one point to the back point, which is the back of the tank. And you can see on the back there, it says Aqua Lung. It says, I think, U.S. Divers. It also is an aluminum cylinder, if you didn't believe that. It is not 100% true. It is a plastic tank, but based on the label, at least on the back here, it would tell you that it's aluminum. Nice detailing done to the back of this. It doesn't look like it's a sticker. It looks like rather it's been printed onto the tank itself. The tank, for all intensive purposes, can be removed off of Hooper. The thing about it, though, is there's no means to really detach the belt area. For all intensive purposes, you should be able to slide the shoulder straps down. But there's really no way that I can see, at least, that you can detach the middle strap here, short of just ripping and breaking it. If you're going to rip and break it, you're only going to be more upset about the matter. So we're going to leave, obviously, the tank on for those reasons alone. But what you can actually do is you can detach this, put that to the side, as the figure also comes included with a swappable head sculpt. What I might find myself doing, actually, is when I eventually get myself that other Hooper in his casual clothes. I don't know what head sculpts. I think he comes with one that actually has the beanie hat on the top. But if he doesn't have a head that I like, I might just find myself actually using this head, because this one is decent, looking quite a lot like actor Richard Dreyfuss. Richard Dreyfuss, what other things was he in? Cocoon? Am I thinking of something else? Was Richard Dreyfuss in Cocoon? Let me know down below in the comment section. But what you can do, though, is easily pop the head off the ball joint, put that to the side, and then carefully, while not putting pressure against the glasses, pop the new Hooper head in place. Just to see where we came from to where we've gone now. Hooper with goggles. Hooper without goggles, although in this case now he's wearing glasses. In both cases, not only is the head sculpt really good, but the paint is stellar on these pieces. The beard is really quite handled well as the way they've sculpted and painted the hair. I think for the rest of this review, I may just leave the goggles one off and look at this one. The glasses actually are real lensed glasses. Well, as lensed as they could be using plastic, but at least you can still make out his eyes underneath it. Again, no complaints at all when it comes to head sculpt on Hooper here. As for the rest of his body, I would have to believe that underneath all this is a regular retro cloth body, retaining all the same articulation that the newer retro cloth figures will have. Of course, scuba outfit-wise, they're using a stretchier material, mostly done in black. Of course, the sleeves here in blue. He does actually have his wristwatch, too. The wristwatch is a separate piece, so one actually good thing of not having swappable hands, if you were to accidentally remove the hand and not pay attention, the very large wristwatch would actually fall onto the floor or into the water, depending on where you store your figures. It would be ironic, actually, if you actually had Hooper falling into a fish tank. What an adventure I'm sure he would go on. But yeah, overall, just a nice looking figure. He's got the little holster there on the side that would be holding either the shark dart or the knife. And then he's got these tiny little feet. Now again, like the problem with the feet though, is that the peg is right there. It's underneath the plastic. It's contained in such a way that it kind of comes into play where there's a little more problem when it comes to actually moving his ankle about. This angle actually of the two seems tighter. Not too tight that I'm not willing to take a risk, but still pretty tight. Pretty tight. But yeah, like I said, he does have peg holes in the undersides of his feet. So if you do make use of a display stand from NECA Toys, just pop that again on the bottom of it. For the figure's articulation, Hooper's head is on a ball joint, so it rotates all the way around. Careful not to trigger the valves there in the back of the tank. That rotates all the way around. You can have the head hinging down, hinging up, and also rocking it back and forth. Although moving the head too far back, I've noticed does pop Hooper's head off. Shoulders do come out. Even though tight with the material that they've used, his arms can still pull off successfully a 90-degree angle bend. You can move the arms forward, you can move the arms back. There's a bicep swivel on the figure. There also is a double hinge on the elbow. Hands rotate also all the way around. Upper torso is on a ball joint. Lower legs hinge out. You can as well take the legs forward and back on them. Swivel at the top. Double hinge on the knee. And then again, he has the articulation in the feet, but again, the feet are a little more on the more limited side, simply just because they're contained inside plastic. It's plastic little booties. Nice looking figure. Really, really happy with how this one turned out. And, you know, I got to say, like with the recent retro cloth figures we've been getting from NECA Toys, if you were to look at what we're getting now, and you were to compare it with the older retro cloth figures of years before, they have made some real considerable improvements. Not only giving us better looking bodies, better articulated bodies, but finer looking head sculpts as well. And speaking of fine head sculpts, once again, we'll just slide over Hooper here, getting him hopefully to stand in the process. And let's bring back in Quint. Yeah, you know, be honest, loving Jaws as much as I do, I am a bit bummed that we aren't getting Brody. Right now, at least. That may change that down the road. Maybe they are able to acquire the license for, well, not Brody, but of course the actor that played Sheriff Brody. Maybe they might be able to actually get the licensing from his family estate. If that's the case, we might find ourselves getting Sheriff Brody, and then the trio will be complete. At one point, I believe NECA did have the conversation going with the Scheider estate. That's Roy Scheider, the late actor that was playing Sheriff Brody in the original Jaws and follow-up Jaws 2. Unfortunately, I guess those conversations fell short, so because of that, we aren't, unfortunately, right now having the conversation of getting that retro cloth Sheriff Brody. That conversation, though, might change in the next several years, as maybe something might end up materializing. But as of right now, the only figures we have right now from the original 70s classic Jaws is a Quint and 2 Hoopers. Look at Hooper showing off with 2 figures. There's, of course, this one, the Shark Cage or Scuba outfit Hooper, but there's also the casual clothing Hooper, which is available right now online and in retail stores. I'd like to get my hands on that Hooper, and certainly rest assured, if I do, a follow-up video including the Scuba Hooper. That's so funny to say that. Scuba Hooper. He will be coming back, of course, as we compare the 2 figures. Likeness-wise, I think this is just as good, probably even tied with the Quint. Both figures bear a very strong likeness to the actors that portrayed the role in the classic film. Accessory-wise, I would almost even say it's a tie again, as both the figures come with all movie-specific accessories. Mind you, Hooper is all more scientific gear. Quint came included with like beer bottles or beer cans, a baseball bat and machete. You sort of knew where Quint was coming from. But I love both of these figures. Being a big Jaws fan myself, I am, yes, a little bit bummed that we aren't getting ourselves a Brody for right now, but what we have at least from now, from NECA Toys, for 2 Hoopers and a Quint, we're doing pretty good for Jaws fans. Once again, a big thank you to the folks over at NECA Toys that did provide the sample of Shark Tank's Scuba Hooper. I'm not really going to put Scuba Hooper. That's so funny just to say it. I'm not going to put that in the title. It's going to be just Shark Tank Hooper. What do you guys think of the figure? Let me know down below in the comments section. Certainly as well, if you enjoyed this video, hit with a like. If you love the content you guys are seeing and certainly do want to stick around for more, then make sure you hit the subscribe button down below and turn on the bell notification. And as always, guys, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.